Artemi Panarin to the Panthers can happen as soon as this week. Florida is looking to three-peat, and the Rangers are fielding offers. We also have an update on Adam Fox's injury and whether or not it makes sense to shut both him and Igor Shesterkin down for the rest of this dark and dull season. Welcome back to Rangers Digest. We are built for Blue Shirt fandom, and I'm your host, Bret Botfeld. It is great to be back with you guys. We have a ton to talk about. The Rangers have lost 6 out of their last 7 games. Only one more game on the schedule before the Olympic break, so the Rangers are looking to move Panarin sooner rather than later. One dark horse that's being talked about quite a bit recently by insiders like Elliotte Friedman are the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, looking to go for that Pat Riley three-peat. They're currently on the outside looking in, but let's not forget this front office is innovative, known for making surprising deals like the Brad Marchand deal last year at the deadline, which helped them capture their second Stanley Cup in 2 seasons. But first things first, they got to get back into the playoff picture. Acquiring a player like Panarin would certainly help them do that. And former assistant general manager of the Florida Panthers, Steve Werier, came out with a fascinating article, a must-read, talking about why Sergei Bobrovsky and a shared agent between him and the Breadman can help make Panarin a Panther. So let's get right into this article. Elliotte Friedman, he's spoken about Florida quite a bit recently, talking about their cap situation. It's not a great cap situation, so he said a lot of teams in the NHL are wondering if the Panthers can actually pull off a Panarin trade. Their former assistant general manager, Steve Werier, said in this article, "I think they can because of the players involved on and off the ice." The good news is for the Panthers, they'd be acquiring a tremendous player in Panarin. But guess what, guys? We have to think about ourselves. This would be awful. An awful deal for the Rangers, and here's why. Let's not forget that Marchand deal last year, very reminiscent to Panarin's situation, an older impact player who can really control where he goes next. The Rangers have already made it clear they won't re-sign him, so they need to move him to acquire some value in return. But guys, Panarin, he does hold the cards. He has the leverage. If he really wants to go to Florida, play with his good buddy Bobrovsky, they share the same agent. In order to make a deal like this work, the Rangers would most likely be on the losing end, and let me talk about why. So the former assistant general manager of the Panthers says they have the players involved on and off the ice that can make this deal happen. So let's talk about the players involved on the ice first. In order to make a deal happen, the Rangers would retain about 50% of Panarin's salary, so the other half would have to be worked out through cap. Now, the Rangers could acquire a player in this deal like Evan Rodriguez or Carter Verhaeghe, which is spoken about in the article, and this would be bad news for the Blueshirts. Nothing against these two players. They've been solid players for their championship teams, but both are 30 years and older. Both have commitments on their contracts, and the Rangers are in no position to bring in players like this. I know Chris Drury labeled it a retool, but they need a rebuild. They can't bring in 30 and 32-year-olds on a team that is already aging out. Yes, the Rodriguezes and Verhaeghes of the world look good on the Florida Panthers, but would they really look good on Broadway? I don't think so, but it would be necessary to throw a guy like that in the deal. It would be absolutely necessary. Now, the players involved off the ice for the Florida Panthers that can help make a deal work is obviously their captain, Alexander Barkov, who has been hurt this season. He's been on LTIR, which frees up over $3 million in cap space for the Panthers. If he misses the rest of the season and the playoffs, if they make it to the playoffs, and put him on season-ending LTIR, that would free up over $6 million in cap space. So having a player like Barkov out, also Seth Jones and others out, and having a player like Rodriguez or Verhaeghe you could flip in a deal for Panarin, you can absolutely make it work. But Florida not only wants to contend once again this year, but how can they contend for future seasons? How can they retain Artemi Panarin and retain Sergei Bobrovsky and retain the rest of this roster. We're going to get into that now. So Panarin's agent is Paul Theofanous, and that is significant, guys, because in addition to Panarin, Theofanous represents a current Panther on an expiring contract. That is Panarin's countryman and close friend, Sergei Bobrovsky, who is on the last year of a $10 million AAV deal. Now, guys, you may recall that Bob and Panarin reportedly wanted to be a package deal to Florida back in 2019 when they were last UFAs. Obviously, it didn't happen. Bobrovsky went to Florida, has had tremendous success there, but Panarin ended up going to the Rangers. He's had a tremendous career as a Ranger. Obviously, hasn't been able to hoist Lord Stanley, but that was a real conversation back in 2019, but they can certainly make it a reality in 2026 and beyond. Now, if Panarin really wants to go to Florida but doesn't want to create a cap crunch that impacts his best friend Bobrovsky's future there, he'll need team and agent to get creative. Luckily, like I said earlier, this is a Panthers front office that's been creative, innovative with veteran extensions like Brad Marchand's 6-year, $5.5 million AAV deal that runs until he's age 43. Like I said, the bad news for the Blueshirts is that this deal, like I said, is very similar to Panarin. Panarin holds the cards and he can absolutely control where he goes next, like Marchand did when he went from Boston to Florida. Now, reports say Panarin wants $50 million. We all know that in total salary on his next deal. He'll be 35 years of age in October, and it's reasonable to think that some teams won't want to do that. They won't want to exceed 4 years on an extension. For those with lots of cap space, the preference may be 3 years instead of 4. In these scenarios, Panarin's next AAV would come in between $12.5 and $15 million. That's for teams that have a lot of cap space that want to go short term on the bread man. But when it comes to Florida, that is not their current cap situation. Like I said, they have a lot of players making a lot of money, and if they want to keep the rest of the band together that has helped them win back-to-back championships, those numbers simply won't work for the Florida Panthers. But like I said, this is an innovative front office. This is an agent that represents both Panarin and Bobrovsky, and a deal can certainly get done. Now, I just spoke about their cap situation. You can see they only have a little over $15 million to play with in the offseason, and that's with Bobrovsky's $10 million coming off the books. So how can a front office like Florida actually pull this off? Now, I mentioned earlier that teams with a lot of cap space will be looking to go high AAV and short term on a player like Panarin. I understand he wants $50 million, probably his last massive contract. He's about to be 35 years old. And teams that are willing to give him a lot of money on short term believe that he still has 3 good seasons left in the tank. And I believe he does as well. But a team like Florida, if they really want him right now, if they really want to keep Bobrovsky long term as well, if they really want to keep the rest of the band together, how do they pull this off? What they do is they front load the contract. They go long on term and short on AAV. So instead of $13 to $15 million a year for 3 seasons, what Florida could do, like they did with Marchand on a contract that takes him past age 40, they can do short AAV and long term. But Panarin could get his contract front loaded, get a lot of money early on. His agent can make sure there's security in there to where he gets paid the full $50 million even as he continues to age or if injuries become a factor. But that's really how a team like Florida could pull this off. I just believe it would be bad business for the Rangers, but the bad news is they don't have much leverage. They need to move Panarin because they're not re-signing him. But this could be a disaster if you get a player like Verhaeghe or Rodriguez in return and you don't get any young, intriguing players, and you're still committed to these players like Verhaeghe and Rodriguez for at least one more season. the Panthers don't have a great prospect pool. I wouldn't want to do business with them. And like I said, Panarin would be happy, but the Rangers would be screwed. Which leads me to my next point. At practice today, Peter Baugh reported that Vincent Lorio was practicing wearing number 6. Noah Laba is on the ice as well in a non-contact sweater. He got hurt in their last game against the Penguins. Nice to see him healthy. Fox and Sherry were also skating in non-contact sweaters. But my problem with this, why is Adam Fox practicing? I know he's in a non-contact sweater, but what's the point of bringing him back? What's the point of bringing Igor Shesterkin back? The Rangers need to tank. Before I get back to Adam Fox, here's the newly acquired Ranger, Vincent Florio, practicing with the team today. Number 6, more on him in another video. He's a big, strong defenseman, 23 years old, filling in the void of Carson Soucy as he was traded to the Islanders and put up some good numbers in the WHL. Has a little bit of NHL experience. But just to talk about Fox for one more second here, the Rangers are the worst team in the Eastern Conference. One of the worst teams in the NHL. They need to tank. There's no point in winning. You have to tank. Look at what happened with the Islanders last year. They missed the playoffs. They tanked, landed the number 1 overall pick, got Matthew Schaefer. Looks like he's going to be a star for the next decade plus. And now the Islanders are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I believe they should just shut down Adam Fox, shut down Igor Shesterkin, and pack it in. There's literally nothing to play for at this point. Just play the young guys, let them develop. There is no point in winning. Tank, try to get that number 1 overall pick. And don't do what you did when you drafted Alexei Lafreniere. Actually make sure this pick turns into a stud. But that's going to do it here today. I'm fascinated to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know if you guys agree with me in the comment section. I'm against doing business with Florida, trading him there. But like I said, Panarin does hold the cards. I just believe it would be a bad deal for the Rangers. They need to rebuild, not retool. They need to look to trade with a team like San Jose that actually has an intriguing prospect pool. And also let me know what you think about Adam Fox and Shesterkin. Should they come back or should the Rangers shut them down, let them heal, get ready for next season? But let me know how you feel. And if you haven't yet, hit that free subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything happening New York Rangers.